by the chat room, and of course thanking Peter Abraham for giving us a nice pop over at the Journal News. And to round up the show, we're going to talk more hot stove. So you heard from Peter Abraham. Pete talked about the Yankees, set the theme for the offseason and the signing of Marte today. Set that theme. We talked to Terry Poole about the Olympics and kind of got the answer from him about Mike Scott scuffing the ball and about his program over at the University of Houston Victoria. And now it's our good friend from New York Baseball Digest, Joey DeMeo. Joey, how are you?
Good. What's going on, Mike?
Not much. Thanks for coming on tonight. You're a popular guy. There's been requests for you the last couple of weeks on Sunday night. When's Joey coming back on?
Hey, I'm here.
So, Pete, basically, I said this in the opening, the hot stove is kicked off. You have the Matt Holliday trade. You have the trade that the Marlins made. Now Damaso Marte signs with the Yankees. So we're really in full swing with hot stove. And since we've been talking about the Yankees, I'll start with the Mets. And I'll start with the bullpen. And I said on Sunday that I didn't get such great reports in my West Coast scout about J.J. Putz and his makeup for New York, so to speak. The scout also has concerns about Francisco Rodriguez and his delivery. And, of course, now Houston Street is in Colorado, and we don't know what they're going to do with him. That really leaves Brian Fuentes. Trevor Hoffman's probably available. Let's start with the closing market in the Mets. What are you hearing, and what's the latest buzz you got for us?
I mean, the Mets are in the best position they could possibly have dreamt to be when it comes to getting a closer. There's no big market teams that are looking for a closer. I mean, the Cubs, they'll need a closer if they don't sign Wood, but they could use Carlos Marmol. I mean, the Tigers have to cut payroll. Then you have teams like the Brewers, possibly. No one that's really going to rival the Mets. The Mets could basically go get who they want. I mean, if they want to go to free agent route, which is what I'm hearing. They really do want K-Rod. I don't believe they just have a problem with a 5-year deal on him. They're not going to go to that.
Understandably,
way.
I mean, is that motion? Are you hearing their concern with that motion, like my scout had said?
Oh, absolutely. That's the major concern with the motion. It's very violent, but I mean, if you're going to get a 4-year deal to Brian Fuentes at age 33, going on 34, I mean, you could give a 4-year deal to K-Rod at 26 and just be like, maybe, and think he could possibly hold it up. I don't think through trade. I think that's more of a backup option. Like Street, I don't think they look at him as a closer. The Mets are very interested in Street. They were when he was in Oakland as well. And they might actually have a shot. They're in the mix. Colorado is more than likely going to flip him off somewhere. And they have long coveted Aaron Heilman, so maybe an Aaron Heilman and a prospect or two for Street kind of deal can be worked out.
And then he would be more of a setup guy at that point, or they would bring him in to close?
No. If they brought in Street, it would be to set up for either a Rodriguez, a Fuentes. Heard a little buzz about Bobby Jenks, but that's going to cost you Fernando Martinez. So
and that strikeout rate has dropped a lot. He used to do more than a strikeout per inning. Now he's down to 38 strikeouts in about 60 innings. What's up with that? I don't know if I would trust
his velocity is dropping a bit. He used to throw 101. Now he's throwing like 94, 95. Not that that's slow or anything, but I mean, when you look at it, the closer market, you have K-Rod, who's going to get 4-year deal. You'd guess he's going to get a 4-year deal. It's probably going to be anywhere in the neighborhood of 14 to 15 million per season. But there's not going to be many teams in on him, so the Mets have an advantage there. While Brian Fuentes, Pierce is going to be at least half a dozen teams bidding seriously to bring this guy in, and so I could picture him getting 4 years at $12 million a year, $13 million a year. So really, I mean, if you're looking at it from this perspective, Brian Fuentes has been on one competitive team his entire career, and that was the 2007 Rockies. He lost his closer job at mid-season.
That was after a bad week. I mean, Howard did point out it was after just one bad week. They kind of pulled the plug on him pretty quick.
Right. I mean, nonetheless, he lost the closer's job, sure. And K-Rod has been a dominant closer on a great team for years now.
And he's got a title, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
He's got a title. Now, the bullpen needs more than just a closer. So the Mets are in a great position. They're going to get a closer. They're going to get a top-notch closer, it looks like. Just depends on for how much and whom. But the bullpen needs. Many games are blown in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, and they have a couple of good arms in Joe Smith and Pedro Feliciano. But they're going to need more. They're going to need guys that could dominate an 8th and not just situational guys like Smith and Feliciano. Juan Cruz, Jeremy Affeldt, Joe Beimel. Here's some names I'm throwing out at you. What's realistic? What are you hearing in terms of guys that can comprise that bullpen? and additional arms they could get for the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning?
I think it's more likely the Mets are not going to be going and shelling out big money deals to relievers. I'm hearing Juan Cruz very well may get a closing job, possibly in Milwaukee. He would be looked at in that fashion. So if he's going to get a closer's job, he's not going to come to the Mets to set up.
Solomon Torres retired, so that is an opening
exactly.
there.
So they're out a closer. His Turnbow kind of busted on them. But I mean, I don't think Manaea is really looking to giving out too many more multi-year deals to middle relievers. You might see one, like a Beimel. I heard a lot about Joe Beimel. I heard him more so than Jimmy Affeld at this point. He would make up the second lefty when the Mets trade Scott Schoenweiss. But as far as it goes, you could see, I heard a little buzz about a trade for Rafael Betancourt from the Cleveland Indians coming off a bad year. Because Manaea has been stressing that relief pitchers are hot and cold. So Betancourt had an off year, just like Aaron Highland did, but in general has been very reliable. So he's someone with a power arm they could bring in, and he could prove to be a great setup man. I think he's going to go more to cheaper guys. Chad Cordero is a guy on the radar, even though he won't be back till June.
That's true. You reported that a while back.
But power arms, I think. Houston Street is a possibility if they're willing to give a good enough player with Heilman, who the Rockies love and would want to start him.
Do you think Schoenweiss could fetch you something to fill another need on the open market? You basically, well, the reason you're substituting Beimel for Schoenweiss is because you just want Schoenweiss somewhere else. I don't think he can come back. I think the fans will bother him. Although he does a great job against lefties, so you could probably keep him around if you wanted to. Is that kind of what they're thinking of, or do they think they could get something for Schoenweiss and Beimel is a better version of him?
The thing is, the Mets will trade either Schoenweiss or Feliciano. They'd rather trade Schoenweiss because he's not signed for as long and he makes more money. I don't think they're getting anything legit back for him. You might get an okay role player kind of guy. You're not going to get anything that great for him back. But Beimel is the kind of guy who is not a pure lefty specialist. Manaea doesn't want to build a bullpen of specialists again. He wants
You've got two of them already. Feliciano's debatable, but Joe Smith for sure.
Yeah, all you need is two specialists in a pen. You can use Feliciano as a specialist and occasionally pitch to righties. I still think he's capable of getting out righties. I mean, he's done it in the past. It's just this past year he basically was a pure specialist. And Manaea really doesn't want a bullpen of specialists again because it really ties Jerry Manuel's hands using 6 pitchers a night, and it's really tough to do that and then last 162 games.
Starting pitching. The debate is on. You've heard, I've been on the fence, and I'm just very concerned about letting Oliver Perez just walk. You've reported on the website that the Mets would like to have 2 starting pitchers.
Right.
They're going to be competing with the Yankees, and names like Derek Lowe and A.J. Burnett are obviously competing directly with the Yankees. Randy Wolf, I know MLB Trade Rumors has reported that the Astros have made him an offer. I had heard he wasn't going to resign there. I heard that through somebody I talked to. I don't know how true that is. Obviously, money talks. What do you think about the starting pitching market? And I know where you stand. You're not a big fan of Oliver Perez. So I guess we'll break it down that way. Talk about Perez again, because it seems like a majority of the fans, when we've done polling on the site and talked to them, want him back.
I mean, it's not a dislike of Oliver Perez. It's just I don't like his peripheral numbers aren't looking good. He's striking out at a good rate, but his walk rates are insane. I don't believe he's ever thrown 200 innings in a season. He's very inconsistent, and if you're giving a guy that much money in that many years, you're giving him number 2, number 3 money, and he could very well give you number 4 or even worse production. That's the thing with him. He's very shaky. You might get a good year out of him, but he could be 05 Oliver Perez and give you a 6 ERA. Then I don't know when I would get slammed for re-signing him at that point.
Sure.
So I mean, it's just a real risk. It's not that I wouldn't bring him back. I think it's a bigger risk to give him a contract than an older player like Derek Lowe, even though he's older. Lowe spent the first, 4 years of his career in Boston's bullpen as the closer.